Welcome to The Reset, a weekly dispatch of experiences and takes on performance and modern care. For the athlete, the practitioner, and the thinker, we break down recovery, health, and performance systems to reshape the conversation around wellness. Welcome everybody to the Reset Audio Files. Today we take a deeper dive into the existential side of health and wellness by examining the role and effect that our own inner world has on our health status and how mastering that inner world can affect positive change in our lives. This piece is about the inner architecture of resilience, how we think, perceive, and surrender, and how that directly shapes not only our health and performance, but also our ability to feel whole in the process. I hope you enjoy it. The Reset, Episode 21. Mastering the Inner World Mindset. Exploring the paradox of becoming and healing the spaces in between. The quiet war within. The heaviest weights we lift aren't made of iron. They're made of expectations, fears, and the illusion of control. The inner world, our core mind map. This is the place that we identify, examine, and understand what it is that we are and how we choose to prioritize and incorporate the learnings and skills we acquire in this game of life. It is the unseen battlefield where the fight between control and trust, as well as discipline and grace, takes stage. It's less important learning to dominate this battlefield and more effective to learn how to navigate it. Understanding the power struggle between fighting to near death for something that you truly want, and believing that when met with extreme resistance, sometimes the only way through is to absorb that force and redirect it in your favor. Muhammad Ali, the most prolific champion in all of sports history, was masterful in the art of combat. Not because he was the biggest or the most powerful, and certainly not because he was the most aggressive. He utilized the mind and momentum to his advantage, regardless of whether they belonged to him or his opponent. He understood that the more he stood up to fight in the face of brutal resistance, the more chances he gave it to make contact with him, and the lower his chances became of succeeding. He mastered his own movements in the head and shoulders to freely flow between attacking punches, and he used the continuation of energy coming his way in relentless counterattacks. He used momentum already created by energy and forces to manipulate the direction of the fight in his favor. This allowed him to avoid the latency between defending and resisting and then mounting his own strategic attack, saving time and energy on his way to victory. The beauty of this example is that it's a living metaphor for this battle between the inner and outer worlds within ourselves. The perception of our external environment that we carry around and the true effect it has on our success are illusions. They are the inner workings of our minds and the control that we believe we have on it. As mere mortals in a fight for true health and wellness, how can we relate to this example? Well, we can understand that control of the situation we face is elusive, and that the prospect of positively affecting that situation resides within the intention and direction of our own thoughts and actions. We can learn that the wellness journey is rarely about the body alone, and more about mastering the landscape of the mind that drives every action, habit, and belief. We can learn how to embrace impermanence and to recognize that true strength comes from not tightening your grip, but expanding your capacity to hold life as it is. And we can also believe that the constant need to push harder, perform better, or fix what feels broken is a delusional expectation created within our own broken idea of what we want to be in our life. The space between effort and surrender. There is a vast misunderstanding that occurs within the fitness and health community surrounding the idea of effort. Since 2020, we have seen an unprecedented spike in group fitness, and high-intensity training. Experts believe this to be caused by the pandemic and highlighted by the following need for connection and community in a time where it was virtually non-existent. This fitness trend has evolved many times since then, with popular training methods such as CrossFit, Olympic training and lifting, and now High Rocks training becoming the standard multi-use platforms for health generation amongst the majority of enthusiasts. Sweat, high heart rates, and maximal effort are all glorified, so much so that we have emerging platforms offering higher ambient temperatures in order to create further metabolic stress during exercise, only to be supplemented by a towel and a $20 smoothie upon completion. As somebody who has literally made a living as a fixer of these issues created by this type of training and the mindset that supports it, I would love to offer a more balanced approach. Your health is a practice. The success of this practice is dependent on your ability to recover and regenerate, which happens only in the absence of maximal physical effort. It doesn't show in the consistency of effort, rather the oscillation between stress and recovery. The modern mind equates progress with effort and grind and discipline, push. Yet, the deepest form of healing, growth, and clarity only come from the release. Strength lives within rhythm, not resistance. Serenity comes through being and learning to rest without guilt and to trust without evidence. It is where we as life athletes can learn to breathe into discomfort rather than fight around it, and where mastery of this paradigm comes from knowing when to push and when to yield. For rest is not the absence of effort, rather, it involves an amplified one in a different direction, accompanied by the trust that it provides guidance through the journey ahead. Control is an illusion, and that's the gift. We can use the chronic stress response in our own physiology as an example of this. The dominance of the sympathetic nervous system and the rigidity that comes from living in that state constantly. We must learn to have a bridge mindset, where we abandon the attempt to control every outcome and disconnect from the process of perfection. Only then can we attempt to truly understand ourselves, and therefore, what is required for us to obtain true health. Adopting a functional health practice into your life may be the most complex endeavor you ever embark on, but it is the one that provides the most education of the inner world we create. Control feels safe, but it's a false safety. It's a wall that we build to keep uncertainty out and self-imagined command over the external processes in. This sovereignty is not only detrimental to the physical progress of our health practice, but also the mental, emotional, and spiritual growth that it should spark during this process. I personally have spent my entire life fighting the current. I've spoken before about my efforts to experience a difficult path, but that's not what this is. This is something that is not necessarily synonymous with discomfort and growth, but certainly similar in the toll that it takes. I have perpetually gone against the grain in my life, swam upstream. Though it has at times offered growth and profound learning experiences, it took a lot out of me and mostly just distract me from truly experiencing the difficult path that was already there in all of its beauty. I should clarify, I'm not speaking of letting yourself go or falling into line. We all have our own path in life and we need to be unique. So if that means going against the grain in that moment, then that's the way for you. What I'm speaking of is more in terms of the effort summoned from within in the way of accomplishing your desired outcomes. It can be extremely attractive to pour every ounce of effort into a single task, all at once. No distractions, no deviations. But that can be a rigid mindset, and it can be blinding and limiting. For rigidity is the opposite of resilience. Life lesson. Embrace unpredictability, thrive in adaptation, and reconnect with the process of getting there rather than the perception of what it might feel like when you arrive. Visual metaphor. Trying to grasp water, only to realize that it cannot be held, only felt. Why we break, and why that's okay. If we follow the mindset of fluidity, adaptation, and process over outcome, then we should become naturally more risk-averse. If we can normalize the experience of failure and breakdown, we should be more capable of dealing with the outcome of falling short of our goals. We should become more adaptable to pain and discomfort, both physically and mentally. And because we decide to avoid the attempt to command every reality we involve ourselves in, we should be more willing to accept that which we have no command over, and therefore allow ourselves to be more open to experiencing the pain and discomfort of failure and breakdown. Breaking isn't inherently bad. It offers the chance to change, evolve, and become something new. It can give the opportunity to alter and grow. I can't help but use a muscle metaphor here, so here it goes. The only way to grow a muscle is to introduce steady, consistent exposure to damage. This micro damage that occurs regularly over a long period of time will offer a new look, feel, size, density, and shape, and therefore becomes an adaptation that wouldn't otherwise exist if not for the breaking of that soft tissue. Psychological and social struggle is very similar. Pushing the limitations further and further for personal and professional growth would not occur if those limitations were unknown and unmet. Similarly, breaking offers the chance to examine and identify where things went wrong. Without the presence of a breakdown, we would be blind to the opportunity and the space to change and alter our approach or practice. Core tension. Breakdown is often misinterpreted as failure. But it's a message, not a verdict. Visual metaphor. A bone remodeling stronger after a fracture. It takes time and patience and direct energy. Wholeness over perfection. If perfection and control isolate you, then wholeness connects you. The moment you start chasing an inner oneness, rather than control over what can be distracting to that, is the moment you start creating coherence. We can recenter ourselves around the idea of rebalancing and releasing our need to control outcomes, and focus on the process of integrating what we learn and what we're capable of doing while we travel our path. This mindset shift eliminates the possibility of developing a practice that bends and adapts and evolves with new ideas and environments. True wellness. Something supportive and inclusive to pain and discomfort, not absent from it. This shift from fixing to integrating is the essential piece to growth, and therefore is a key limitation in your journey to achieving the level of health you're waiting for. Core tension. Perfection seeks to erase the flaw. Wholeness seeks to include it. Visual metaphor. A mosaic art. Broken pieces made beautiful through their arrangement in the entire picture. The whole vision rather than the focus point. Closing reflection. You don't need to be unshakable to be strong. You just need to know when to tighten your grip and when to let life move through you. I want you to take the opportunity to notice one area of your life where you might be gripping too hard and experiment with softening it for 1 week. Allow yourself to experience what it feels like to relinquish control in some area of your life. Let life come to you for once. Don't ignore it. Don't chase it. Rather, move with it and focus on your mindset, approach, and actionables. Let life meet you where you're at. Find your foundation and use it to build a sturdy practice in your health, in your relationships, and in your career. In health and performance, Alex.